He was born a prince, became a conqueror, and died a god, at least in his own eyes. Qin Shi Huang crushed rival kingdoms, burned books, buried scholars, and unified China with blood and iron. He built walls to keep enemies out and roads to move armies fast. He ruled through fear, order, and ambition so vast it reached into the afterlife. His tomb still sleeps beneath a mountain of earth, guarded by thousands of silent clay soldiers. This is the story of the first emperor, a man who ended centuries of chaos and reshaped China forever, at any cost. Our journey unfolds in a time of chaos and relentless conflict, when the vast land known as China was divided among warring states, locked in a struggle for power. Into this world of perpetual discord was born Ying Zheng, later to be revered as Qin Shi Huang. His birth, steeped in legend, was said to be heralded by celestial signs, whispering of a destiny that would reshape history. Yet, for all the auspicious omens, Ying Zheng's early life was overshadowed by the stark realities of political intrigue and the omnipresent threat of betrayal. Ying Zheng grew within the tumultuous state of Qin, one of many territories vying for supremacy. His father, King Zhuangxiang, came to power amid webs of shifting alliances and double crosses. His mother, Lady Zhao, hailing from a rival state, added layers of complexity and danger to the young prince's existence. Amidst these precarious conditions, Ying Zhao taught himself the intricacies of power and ambition. From a young age, surrounded by the machinations and ambitions of those plotting in the shadows, he learnt that survival required not only intelligence and vigilance, but also an unwavering resolve to achieve what no one before him had achieved: the unification of China. Endowed not just with royal blood, but with an acute understanding of his turbulent world, young Ying Zheng was educated with care. His mentors, often seasoned warriors and shrewd diplomats, imparted lessons that mingled military prowess with cunning diplomacy. He learned that true strength lay in the ability to interpret the nuances behind every word spoken, to sense vulnerabilities, and to anticipate threats. It was a necessary cynicism in a realm where one misstep could spell doom. Yet, his education extended beyond politics and warfare. Ying Zheng observed the fabric of his kingdom, woven from the lives of his subjects, peasants toiling under the constant spectre of war, craving peace amidst hardship and deprivation. It was in these relentless struggles that Ying Zheng perceived a vision of unity, not born of benevolent ideals, but forged from the iron will to impose order where chaos reigned. When Ying Zheng ascended the throne at the tender age of 12, following his father's death, skepticism ran rampant. The court was rife with whispers about her mother's influence and the manipulative prowess of Lu Buwei, once a merchant and now a powerful chancellor. But this young king, underestimated by many, was determined to confound expectations with his singular focus and resolve. Unlike his predecessors, who found themselves merely reacting to events, Ying Zheng plotted a path of conquest that extended beyond Qin's borders. As king, he wasted no time consolidating his rule, swiftly neutralizing internal threats. Lu Buwei's considerable influence served both as counsel and obstacle, yet Ying Zheng deftly navigated these treacherous waters. Despite his youth, he demonstrated an uncanny ability to command respect and cultivate loyalty among those who might otherwise exploit his vulnerability. Understanding the impossibility of single-handedly achieving his vision, Ying Zheng sought out allies defined by their shrewdness and dedication to his cause. Among them was Li Si, a fierce advocate for centralized power and systemic reform. and Wang Jian, a general renowned for his tactical acumen who transformed Qin's military into a formidable force. These alliances were essential, brokered not through mere manipulation, but through shared ambition and strategic forethought, setting the stage for military campaigns that would herald a new dawn. Fully aware of the significance of studying his adversaries, Ying Zheng gleaned insights from the states surrounding Qin, Zhao, Wei, and Han. Each provided valuable lessons in strategy and governance. By assimilating their strengths and exposing their weaknesses, he tailored Qin's approaches, refining not only its military maneuvers, but its administrative strategies. This deep understanding allowed Ying Zheng to foresee potential rebellions and dissent, and he adroitly addressed these by incorporating local customs and involving regional elites in governance, a shrewd blend of psychological acumen and realpolitik. These moves were emblematic not only of military prowess, but a nuanced grasp of human nature, serving as a pivotal tool in his grand design. Driven by more than a desire for conquest, Ying Zheng envisioned a lasting legacy, conceptualizing the Herculean task of knitting a fragmented realm into a cohesive polity, marked by unity and enduring peace. His approach was fiercely pragmatic, encompassing the standardization of weights, measures, and even language to facilitate understanding and transaction across conquered territories. Ultimately, Ying Zheng's ascent was orchestrated amid a tapestry of schemes, maneuvers, and power struggles. He perfected the art of court politics, simultaneously commanding armies and extracting the venom of courtly deceit with unflinching resolve. His transformation from a child surrounded by darkness into a ruler of formidable power mirrored not only his personal journey, but the chaotic spirit of his time, a boy destined to unify a kingdom under heaven. Through him, China was forged anew, under the enduring and paradoxical legacy of the first emperor. In a land fractured by warfare and steeped in chaos, the Warring States period painted a vivid tableau of ambitions and allegiances as 7 powerful factions grappled for supremacy. Qin, at the western edge of this turbulent stage, once dismissed as a rugged outlier by the more refined eastern states, found its home amid strategic isolation. Shielded by mountains, nourished by fertile plains, and primed for audacious conquest. This state of Qin emerged as an unlikely contender, its geography both a fortress and a granary, nurturing a warrior class hardened by necessity and destined for greatness. Amidst this tumultuous backdrop, the ambition of Qin was ignited, weaving a narrative of defiance and destiny against a landscape littered with the ruins of failed empires. From the cradle of Qin's vision, where survival demanded cunning, rose a formidable military machine driven by relentless innovation and reform. The emergence of this force transformed mere soldiers into skilled combatants through rigorous training and strategic foresight. Embracing the crossbow and advancing siege technology, Qin's armies began to cut their formidable path through China's patchwork of kingdoms. As traditionalists clung to antiquated customs, Qin broke free from their constraints, guided by the unforgiving principles of legalism. This philosophy, with its insistence on meritocracy and iron discipline, shaped a military bureaucracy where even the highest ranks were earned through skill rather than lineage. Yet the strength of Qin's campaign was not solely forged at the point of a sword. Under Ying Zheng's watchful gaze, strategy blended with subterfuge in a performance of intrigue deserving its own stage. Inspired by Sun Tzu's tenet that warfare rests on deception, Qin's operatives engaged in a shadow war, slipping behind enemy lines to gather intelligence, sow distrust and unravel alliances. These masters of espionage, adept at the art of disguise, became architects of chaos, manipulating courts to shift allegiances and weaken defences. Diplomacy added another note to Qin's symphony of conquest. With alliances as instruments of strategic leverage, Qin navigated a delicate dance of trust and betrayal. Its envoys, armed with promises and veiled threats, lured potential allies into temporary partnerships. Through a delicate balance of persuasion and deceit, rivals were first isolated and then subjugated. Qin's manipulations demonstrated that triumph was as much about forethought as it was about force. The fickle nature of such allegiances was epitomised when Qin turned against Chu, an erstwhile ally, setting the stage for its eventual demise beneath Qin's relentless advance. As Qin's dominion expanded, the decisive conquests of Han, Zhao, and Wei marked critical junctures in its quest. The absorption of Han, whose strategic location offered a gateway to further ambitions, reaffirmed Qin's might and turned a once great state into a footnote in its growing empire. Zhao, with its renowned warriors, fell after the brutal Battle of Changping, decimated its army's spirit. Qin's victory, both strategic and psychological, led to Zhao's eventual collapse, leaving its legacy buried beneath fields sodden with defeat. Yet for all its might, Qin's conquest required more than martial prowess. Transformation reached into the very fabric of Chinese society. Legalism's stern grip standardized laws and imposed order upon conquered lands. Under Yingzheng's rule, the disparate customs of each territory became threads in an intricately woven tapestry of empire. Coinage, weights and measures were unified, fostering an economic synthesis that bridged cultural divides. The imposition of a standardized script across state lines knit together a national identity, even as it stifled the regionalisms that had for centuries defined these ancient peoples. Despite the successes, the march to empire carried a staggering human toll. The blood soaked into battlefields, the ashes from burned towns scattered across the wind, and the crushed spirits of countless lives bore witness to Qin's unyielding advance. As legalism's harsh doctrines replaced the philosophies of old, discontent simmered among those who cherished their diverse heritages. The price extracted in traditions and freedoms belied the cohesive veneer of Qin's emerging empire. Yet amid this fragile unity, Qin Shi Huang stood like an indomitable force against the tides of history. Driven by an inexorable vision, he shaped an empire built not only by the strength of arms, but through the astute application of reform and control. Even as dissent lingered beneath the surface, the efficiency and power of Qin remained palpable. His legacy, while marred by the severity of its rule and the cultural erasure it necessitated, laid the groundwork for the subsequent imperial dynasties that would continue to define China's story well beyond his time. In this tapestry of conquest, Qin Shi Huang etched his name, indelibly linking it to the birth of an imperial legacy, an echo of power resounding through the ages. In 221 BCE, a dusk settled over Xianyang as the city prepared for an unprecedented coronation. Yingzheng, a king transformed by relentless ambition, ascended to the throne as Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. The air was thick with incense as the power of ancient titles merged to crown him as both earthly and divine ruler. In robes that reflected the union of heaven and earth, he claimed dominion over all realms, not just as a king, but as the embodiment of an entire nation reborn. This made it clear, the age of fragmented kingdoms was over. In a decisive move, he dismantled the old feudal order, stripping nobility of their titles and lands, thereby eradicating ancestral power. The laws and decrees flowed singularly from the capital, as the emperor declared himself the central axis around which all must revolve. It wasn't just about unifying land, it was about restructuring society itself, ensuring that power radiated from a central core with unquestioned authority. Gone were the hereditary privileges that had scattered power among lords. Now a merit-based administration, devoid of noble lineage, took root. Officials chosen for their skills rather than inheritance governed newly formed commanderies. This framework demanded efficiency and obedience, propelling the empire into a new era where loyalty was owed only to the emperor. Such monumental shifts reflected the emperor's own audacity and vision to reforge an empire bound together by unwavering allegiance to a single ruler. Integral to this transformation was the codification of laws. Led by his minister Li Si, Qin Shi Huang standardized laws across his vast domain, replacing the jumble of local legal systems with a singular, uncompromising code. These laws, harsh and methodical, demanded conformity and suffused society with an iron-fisted order. Those who faltered faced brutal consequences. Under the emperor's watchful gaze, justice was not merely served, it was enforced with a divine severity. In claiming the title of Huangdi, Qin Shi Huang stood poised between heaven and earth, a divine right confirmed by the mandate of heaven. This doctrine promised that the emperor ruled by celestial blessing. Rituals underscored his divine legitimacy, and his reign was often gauged by natural omens. With elaborate ceremonies, he sought to maintain favour with the gods, reinforcing the belief that he was a divinely appointed custodian of the realm, guiding it with heavenly wisdom. Even as he centralised power, Qin Shi Huang laid the groundwork for an intricate bureaucracy. The mandarins became the backbone of his regime, administering reforms that reflected the emperor's vision, from the imperial epicenter to the empire's periphery. These officials, disciplined and merit-driven, ensured that every corner of the empire felt the pulse of authority emanating from Xianyang. Their work was measured and precise, turning governance into a finely tuned instrument of imperial will. Surveillance was paramount in safeguarding this vast dominion. A network of spies monitored the empire's every breath, ensuring that whispers of dissent never matured into cries of rebellion. In bustling markets and solemn halls of power, their presence was an invisible, omnipresent force, reinforcing a regime where trust but verify became the mantra. This pervasive watchfulness instilled a sense of caution and compliance, creating an atmosphere of constant vigilance. At the ideological heart of Qin Shi Huang's rule was legalism. Rejecting Confucian ideals, this philosophy advocated for absolute obedience and stringent law enforcement as the foundation of order. Legalism, under Li Si's counsel, treated laws as the bedrock of power rather than moral guidance. The result was a society where personal freedoms were secondary to the imperatives of state control, an empire forged in discipline and unyielding adherence to its rulers' dictates. Beyond legal and ideological strides, infrastructure bound the empire in tangible form. Roads carved through rugged landscapes, enabling faster movement of military and goods. These were not just paths, but lifelines that quickened the empire's heartbeat. Canals and waterways supplemented these networks, nurturing agriculture and commerce. These engineering marvels stood as testaments to Qin Shi Huang's ability to unify a nation not just in law, but in stone and water. Amidst these transformations, rituals insinuated a sense of the eternal. State ceremonies and public rites redefined Qin Shi Huang's reign as both temporal and everlasting. The emperor crafted an image where empire and eternity intertwined, appealing to cosmic forces to cement his legacy. Through public splendor, he cultivated a narrative of perpetual sovereignty, reassuring his subjects of an enduring peace under his rule. Yet these sweeping changes were met with mixed reactions. For many, the unification of fractured states into a stable empire was a monumental achievement, fostering prosperity and peace. Yet, beneath the surface, discontent simmered among nobles and scholars, yearning for less rigid governance. This tension highlighted the delicate balance between admiration and resentment. As the first emperor's edicts redefined identity and governance, his subjects found themselves navigating a tide of change that would shape the very essence of what it meant to be Chinese, caught between the poles of respect and resistance to an unyielding new world order. In the tumultuous realm of ancient China, where lands were splintered into diverse states, each echoing with its own languages, cultures, and currencies, chaos ruled. Ying Zheng, destined to become Qin Shi Huang, saw these chaotic tapestries as challenges to conquer. In the throes of the Warring States era, a merchant traversing from Chu would often stand bewildered by the dialects in Qin, or the coins of Zhao. Thus emerged the emperor, whose ambition was to unify these fractured lands under a single governing principle, where diversity was perceived as disorder to be quelled. His mission unfolded like a grand, imperial symphony, striking notes of standardization throughout the empire. The rugged terrains of China mirrored disunity, a mosaic begging to be painted with a singular ruling hue, Qin's colour. Qin Shi Huang's notion of central control was both radical and groundbreaking. By harmonizing language and currency, he sought to foster a populace that resonated with the might of a unified hand, and proved his belief that a cohesive system was the bulwark against the chaos that had toppled dynasties of the past. Conquering the cacophony of languages, the emperor embarked on a bold linguistic unification. Ancient China resounded with diverse tongues stubbornly held by each region. To overcome this linguistic barrier, Qin Shi Huang decreed a standardized script, transcending the regional dialect maze. This unified script was not merely for communication, but a bond that tethered disparate communities into a single, cohesive narrative. The enactment of this decree demanded a sweeping transformation. Local scripts were obliterated, giving way to a new Imperial text. Calligraphers were compelled to forsake their cherished strokes, adopting the emperor's script. It was a double-edged blade, severing regional identity, while knitting the empire's vibrant tapestry with uniform threads. Similarly, the economy underwent a meticulous overhaul. Economic disparities among states created power imbalances that Qin Shi Huang could not condone. States minted divergent currencies, varying in design and composition, and these differences often birthed trade disputes. Recognizing the potential for unity within commerce, the emperor standardized currency across the empire with a coin that was circular, housing a central square, a symbolic melding of earth and heavens reflecting cosmic balance. In its simplicity lay the brilliance of governance. Merchants transitioned from dealing with a multitude of currencies to this singular currency, unravelling economic complexities. Trade thrived, taxation streamlined, and economic integration laid the foundation for a robust, unified state. In the realm of weights and measures, disparity equated to unfairness, breeding disputes, Each state relied on its own measurement systems, from weights to distances. Qin Shi Huang imposed uniformity across these dimensions, ensuring every balance scale across the land mirrored that of the imperial seat. Standardization was a tool of both control and unification, illustrating a ruler's vast reach. Each grain of rice, every bolt of fabric metered to precision. His unyielding pursuit extended even to cart axles, standardizing their length. This seemingly mundane reform enhanced troop and goods movement efficiency. Roads carved to accommodate these uniform carts became seamless conduits of imperial might. Such changes epitomized Qin Shi Huang's pervasive influence, transforming transportation into a precise, controlled symphony under his command. Infrastructure, the skeletal frame of his empire, was instrumental in binding China's vastness. Qin Shi Huang's ambitious road-building projects connected territories as never before attempted. Roads were more than physical routes, they were the emperor's lifelines. Long, straight avenues pierced through rugged landscapes, allowing imperial decrees, armies and commerce to flow with unprecedented speed. Carving these paths demanded immense resources and sacrifice, a testament to an era marked by toil and ambition. Though peasants were displaced and landscapes scarred, the roads facilitated a connectivity that would echo through time, anchoring the emperor's resolute vision. Faced with rivers as natural barriers, Qin Shi Huang turned his gaze to bridge building, overcoming natural limits with human ingenuity. Bridges spanned once daunting rivers, transcending territorial divides and symbolising the triumph over divisiveness. Each bridge was a feat of determination, ingenuity and labour, overcoming nature and forging connectivity, thus dissolving excuses for division. Qin Shi Huang perceived the need to unify ideological beliefs, understanding their power over hearts and minds. The array of religious and philosophical doctrines, including Confucianism and Taoism, were harmonized under a single state ideology, legalism. This doctrine's rigid structure emphasized strict law adherence, serving as the backbone of central authority. However, this quest for ideological unity met resistance. Deep-rooted traditions resisted subsumption to a single-state doctrine. The integration sparked discord, revealing the tension between local beliefs and imperial doctrine, a storyline interwoven into the broader narrative of empire building. The emperor's sweeping reforms came at a steep human price. Behind the facade of unity lay a trail of displaced communities and suppressed identities. His relentless drive for uniformity often clashed with local customs, breeding resistance. Under the pressure of a centralized regime, traditional ways of life were uprooted. For many, Qin Shi Huang's vision was a nightmare of enslavement to unity, erasing individuality and setting the stage for later uprisings. Qin Shi Huang's grip extended to the military, crafting an army reflective of his empire's principles of standardization. Soldiers, whether peasants or warriors, were uniformly equipped, personifying the empire's egalitarian rigidity. Streamlined logistics ensured swift deployment, intimidating adversaries and securing the emperor's reign. His military might, both a deterrent and governance tool, epitomized peace through fear, setting a precedent for military organization in epochs to come. Qin Shi Huang's endeavor was a journey through paradoxes, unity achieved through suppression, strength attained through uniformity. His legacy is a double-edged legacy, celebrated for knitting a fragmented nation and criticized for its oppressive methods. His pursuits in linguistic, economic and militaristic unification have echoed across time, foundations for today's vast China. His story remains a testament to the delicate balance between empire and identity, centralization and diversity. A legacy navigated through the ages, echoing the perpetual struggle to mould disparate elements into cohesive wholes. In the heart of his empire, a monumental vision consumed Qin Shi Huang's mind. A vision of a unified realm, where his authority reigned supreme, unchallenged not just physically, but intellectually. His empire was a meticulously structured machine, its gears turning in perfect synchrony with the legalist doctrines he championed. Yet, among the clattering of swords and the harsh echoes of his decrees, a silent threat loomed: the realm of ideas, an untamed frontier fraught with rebellion. To Qin Shi Huang, scholars and their ancient scrolls represented not only a relic of the past, but a potential crack in the edifice of his power. Thus began an audacious campaign to extinguish any flicker of ideological variance that might ignite dissent against his singular China. The iron grip the emperor sought over knowledge was revolutionary in its ruthlessness. It transcended mere suppression, reaching into the roots of Chinese intellectual life to unearth and obliterate the foundations of alternate governance. The histories penned by sages, chronicles of civilization's ebb and flow, were marked as threats for their potential to offer a different path, a challenge to Qin's legalist order. By severing the umbilical cord to their past, he imagined creating a populace with no option but unwavering allegiance to his empire's tenets. This wasn't just political maneuvering, it was cultural conquest. In 213 BCE, an imperial edict scorched the land of its intellectual harvest. Qin Shi Huang ordered a sweeping purge of texts not aligned with state policies. As poetry, history, and philosophy, centuries of wisdom encased in bamboo and silk, met their end in immense bonfires. A sombre hush fell. The flames weren't merely consuming ink and parchment, they were devouring the echoes of civilization's soul. The public nature of this book burning underlined a chilling silence over the emperor's unyielding dominion. His decree laid bare his latent insecurities, a ruler uneasy with the whispers of forgotten eras that might inspire thoughts against him. Yet even the smouldering pyres paled next to the fate that befell scholars under the first emperor's gaze. These keepers of knowledge, once revered for their wisdom, now trembled under a regime distrustful of the very tool, debate, that once spurred progress. Confucian scholars in particular faced peril, their philosophies deemed anathema to the legalist order. The act of dissent spiralled from perilous to fatal, culminating in a macabre purge when, as legend holds, 460 scholars faced execution by burial alive, a grotesque ritual of silencing. The greatest sacrifice, however, lay in the irreplaceable knowledge lost in this conflagration. Poetic verses and scientific treatises, once woven into the fabric of society, vanished in the winds of change, mandated by tyranny. This cultural annihilation eradicated nuanced perspectives, sowing voids in the annals of history that would remain barren. What little knowledge survived, sequestered within the empire's tightened grasp, was twisted to serve imperial ends alone. This chapter of intellectual suffocation left behind a society stripped of diversity and innovation, a silent lesson in the fragility of knowledge under despotic rule. But knowledge, much like embers in the hearth, held a resilient spark. Despite Qin Shi Huang's efforts, the human spirit's insatiable hunger for learning proved unstoppable. Cloaked in shadows, networks of people risked their lives to protect forbidden texts and spread their truths through oral tradition. Weavers of tales and keepers of stories shared coded messages, maintaining a phonetic thread that resisted the erasure of their cultural identity. The clandestine efforts of families and individuals ensured that some knowledge endured the darkness, quietly roaring back to life once the oppressive mantle lifted. Ironically, the emperor's zeal to forge an ideologically uniform empire unwittingly planted the seeds of his undoing. By silencing dissenting voices, he crippled his reign's capacity for introspection and adaptation, stonewalling the innate need for diverse thought. This refusal to embrace variability in ideas and governance sowed systemic fractures, vulnerabilities his administration was ill-prepared to address. Furthermore, Qin Shi Huang's doctrines, intended to consolidate control and eliminate division, birthed instead a brittle empire. Its intellectual rigidity stifled creativity, leaving room for stagnation and brittleness. By orchestrating a society where fear replaced curiosity, the emperor unwittingly charted a course that would toll his regime's death knell, an Achilles heel in an imperfectionless state. As a parable to future generations, Qin Shi Huang's reign stands as a monument to the perils inherent in unchecked power and paranoia. His ambition to etch his empire into eternity was irreversibly marred by his delusion that greatness stemmed solely from control. The echoes of his rule reverberate through the corridors of history, reminding us that true strength in governance balances authority with open-mindedness, fostering dialogue instead of muting it. The tale of Qin Shi Huang's campaign against thought serves as a lasting reminder of wisdom's enduring flame. An era steeped in darkness, yet ensconced within it, are treasures of resilience and intellect, poised to teach those willing to listen. These embers, kindling bridges from past to present, urge us to cherish and defend the freedoms of thought and expression, as the vital forces of progress and understanding they eternally remain. Sky and earth conspire in timeless whispers about the Great Wall, a vast sinuous form etched across the northern frontiers of Qin Shi Huang's empire. This monumental task, an audacious leap from fragmented local defences of the warring states to a unified colossus, emerged from both fear and ambition. Nomads from the north, the Xiongnu, harried the emperor's borders with barbaric impunity, like prowling wolves testing the vigilant shepherd's resolve. As his vision crystallised, the scattered fortifications of old became one unyielding monument of stone and determination, an empire's boundary set in stone. The wall was not merely defensive. Each dovetailed block and mortared inch proclaimed the might of an emperor, whose rule sought to weave disparate threads into a seamless, imperial tapestry, unbroken by gaps through which chaos might seep. Under his relentless gaze, the isolated wall fragments evolved into a singular testament to power and unity, with each stone murmuring allegiance to the emperor's fortifying dreams. Yet, beneath its formidable facade, the human cost was horrifyingly real. Without the aid of modern machinery, progress was driven by the muscle of tens of thousands. Soldiers, criminals and conscripted peasants alike forced to this harsh labour under the lash of relentless overseers. They worked along the harsh expanses of rugged terrain in brutal swaths of elements and exertion. Each strike of hammer became a heartbeat in the laborious life of an empire, a pounding rhythm that drowned out the lamentations of sun-scorched workers. Sima Qian's chronicles speak to the tragic toll paid in bone and sweat, where lives flickered like candle flames snuffed by indifferent winds. Upon their untimely demise, their remains found a macabre resting place within the wall itself. a monument of oppression as much as protection, sewn into the unforgiving embrace of cold stone. This wall of stone would not only shield, but encase the empire like a curse. Folklore tells of spectral apparitions stalking its length, restless spirits of those whose vital energies spent themselves against stone as inexorable as the emperor's dreams. Such tales abound, like that of Lady Mengjiang, whose wailing tore down bricks to reveal her husband's bones, a testament to a love thwarted by the emperor's undying need for control. Legends like this, repeated in whispered awe, grant a haunting human memory to the stones that neither time nor tyranny could expunge. Yet irony drapes itself over this grandiose endeavour. Despite its ambition, the Great Wall was a leaky sieve against the nomads' prowess. Invading horsemen did not cease. Bribery, deception, and the simple tenacity of bypassing less guarded sectors dimmed the barrier's brilliance. The colossal task, in its towering ambition, stood as a paradox. Intended to augment security, it often underscored the vulnerability and limited reach of imperial power. It was a beacon of nobility's vision, but equally a monument to inefficacy wrought by imperial overreach. Layered also were the intricate societal hierarchies revealed in its shadow. Aristocrats directed, sheltered by their status, while labourers languished beneath the strain. To the elite, the wall's emergence was a testimony to their strategic and administrative triumphs. To the common folk, it was a grim prison, a stone siren call, reminding them of lost homes and lives deteriorated in forced servitude. This chasm between classes became another stone within its imposing lengths, dividing within even as it defended without. The construction strained the empire's resources, diverting agricultural bounty to sustain labourers at the cost of famine and unrest elsewhere. Thus, the wall stood both as a bulwark against external foes and an unyielding witness to the internal fractures slowly pulsing with discontent. From these societal rumbles rose the whispers of strife that heralded Qin's eventual decline, the final irony of its maker's lasting legacy. Yet time, that grand cosmic sculptor, has softened those tales of hardship into memories of resilience. Today, the remnants of the Great Wall inspire reverence across the globe. Now seen as an emblem of enduring legacy and architectural prowess, it is woven into the very tale of China's cultural narrative. Its stones reclaim their place in history's parlour, not just as bastions of defence, but as symbols of human endurance and societal complexities. A paradox of grandeur and sacrifice. The story they tell is one of aspirations and an unyielding pursuit of unity, undercut by the fissures, their immense weight sewed upon a burdened populace. The Great Wall stands today as both a triumph and a haunting memento of an era when ambition carved in stone and sinew danced precariously atop the fine line between dominion and the downfall of Qin's imperial dreams. Qin Shi Huang, known as the first emperor of China, stood at the pinnacle of power, having unified a fractured land. Yet the shadow of mortality haunted him relentlessly. Despite his grasp over vast territories, an insatiable fear of death gnawed at his core. This fear manifested into an obsession with immortality, a quest rooted deep in the era's fabric, where myths seamlessly intertwined with reality. His court buzzed with alchemists and fortune-tellers, each offering elusive elixirs and rituals to grant eternal life. With each failed attempt, disappointment only magnified his paranoia and desperation. Driven by legend, Qin Shi Huang was compelled by tales of divine mountains and sacred islands, rich with elixirs of immortality, steeped in Taoist philosophy. These myths, potent and tantalizing, stirred his imagination. Conquered by these alluring promises, he sacrificed wealth and countless lives, veering into a world governed by superstition and fear. His alchemists, revered custodians of ancient knowledge, presented exotic brews of rare herbs and precious metals, with mercury as a prized ingredient. Ironically, the very potions he believed would grant eternal life poisoned him, accelerating both physical decline and mental decay. Despite the perils, his trust in these alchemists never wavered. Grand expeditions were launched to distant lands, seeking the legendary Isles of the Immortals, rumoured to house life-extending treasures. Entire fleets set sail, guided by explorers and accompanied by young men and women deemed pure enough to commune with divine beings. These quests drained the Empire's resources, but Qin Shi Huang deemed the potential prize worth the cost, a desperate gamble against time. However, as the years progressed, the pursuit of immortality tore at the fabric of his sanity. His paranoia increased. Whispers of dissent haunted the corridors of his palace. Even trusted advisors and family members were viewed with suspicion. The mercury he consumed took its toll. It twisted his perception, feeding delusions of grandeur and grandiose control over life and death. In his unravelling state, Qin Shi Huang's grip tightened on his empire. He unleashed secret police to root out dissent, moulding an atmosphere of fear and control. His interventions turned increasingly erratic, with demands for impossibilities from his subordinates. As his paranoia transformed into tyranny, his actions inflicted suffering and entrenched fear across the realm. Outsiders might dismiss his actions as madness, but to the Emperor, his fears were tangible and real, a tragic echo of early ambitions juxtaposed with the fracturing of his mind. Central to his obsession was the influence of Taoism, an ancient philosophy speaking of the Tao, the ultimate path. Taoist practitioners, given free rein in his court, experimented with rituals promising life extension. Their practices, shrouded in mysticism, offered the illusion of divine contact. Although Taoism preached balance, Qin Shi Huang's desperate reach for eternity defied these teachings, misinterpreting them in pursuit of immortality. His willingness to chase myths reached extremes with maritime expeditions, fueled by stories of Penglai's legendary islands where immortals supposedly resided. Massive fleets embarked on spiritual quests under the Emperor's command. Yet they returned empty-handed or vanished into the open seas, highlighting the folly of chasing myths. This maritime mysticism epitomized Qin Shi Huang's ambition, showcasing the lengths he would go to defy nature itself. As these quests drained the Empire's coffers, they illustrated the dangerous extent of one man's fixation stretching a nation's limits. Such ventures did more than jeer at mortality. They strained the Imperial structure itself. The Emperor's final days grew increasingly isolating, marred by the toxic effects of mercury-laden elixirs. His body weakened, his mind deluded by hallucinations. Isolated within his opulent palaces, his empire vast, yet trust nearly non-existent, he became a ruler ruling from the shadows. Edicts issued from concealed quarters created an ambience of intrigue blended with desperation. The court transformed into a hotbed of hysteria, sustained by loyal ministers, manoeuvring within a perilous hierarchy where survival hinged on the Emperor's whim. Even as the Empire strained under his pursuits, dissent whispered across society's segments. The fiscal strain veiled beneath his grand quests for immortality drew away from crucial public needs like military and infrastructure. The echoes of dissatisfaction grew, unrecognised by an emperor blinded by his supernatural obsession. In his last throes, Qin Shi Huang's reign cast a shadow of reflection. a paradoxical blend of mighty ambition countered by human vulnerability. His quest for immortality, while unsuccessful, shaped a legacy more enduring than statues or tombs. It inspired a recurring desire through subsequent generations to transcend human limitations. Today, his story emerges not as a mere tale of folly, but a complex narrative of ambition, resilience, and the ultimate irony of mortality. In the end, Qin Shi Huang's relentless journey to defeat death paradoxically heralded his legacy. Though mortality remained unconquered, his influence transcended time, whispering through China's cultural psyche, intertwining with history, forever immortalized, not in body, but as a legend echoing through time. The tale of Qin Shi Huang's demise unfolds on a dusty road in 210 BCE, where the formidable emperor was wrestling with destiny on a relentless quest for the elixir of immortality. Gripped by an intense fear of death, his grand ambitions had made him a living deity in the eyes of his people. Yet, mortality claimed him far from the splendour of his palatial heart near Shaqiyu. The power vacuum was immediate and palpable, swiftly surrounding his entourage with a gripping silence. He who had unified a fractured land was suddenly rendered a mere mortal, and the implications were perilous. Potential chaos loomed over the empire. Confounded by this turning point, key advisors like Li Si, the ambitious chancellor, and the cunning eunuch Zhao Gao faced a daunting dilemma. The emperor's death could imperil the very stability of the empire forged through iron will and fear. Premature disclosure of his demise risked inciting unrest across the vast territories he had conquered with such exacting precision. Thus, these seasoned schemers resolved to cloak this monumental transition in secrecy, understanding the gravity of deception necessary to steer the empire clear of instant fragmentation. Faced with the decaying body, they devised a macabre yet cunning plan. Surrounding the late emperor's carriage with cartloads of rotting fish, they masked the smell of decay, using the pungent stench as a veil to preserve the illusion of the emperor's invincibility. This grim procession, crawling through idyllic countrysides, was a desperate spectacle, woven from paranoia and expedience. It not only preserved an empire teetering on the brink, but embodied the very core of Qin Shi Huang's reign, a realm commanded under the shadow of awe and contained within an intricate web of fear and control. Within the frantic efforts to maintain this charade, edicts continued to flow under the emperor's seal, buying precious time for the orchestrators of this grand illusion. Beneath this veneer of stability, however, the truth lay perilous. The climate among the advisors was tense. Ambitions clashed in whispered conspiracies. Decisions were loaded with the understanding that the deceptive pause was but a precursor to a volatile transition. The empire's resilience hung precariously, conceived in steel law and brittle governance. As the empire moved under this facade, there was the pressing question of succession. The emperor's eldest son, Prince Fusu, stationed on distant borders, had the makings of a ruler more lenient than his father, a stark contrast his advisors were wary of. Zhao Gao's machinations turned to the youngest son, Hu Hai, a docile figure easily manipulated into the role of puppet emperor. Together with Li Si, Zhao Gao forged a false decree, compelling Prince Fusu's demise and securing their puppet, Hu Hai, upon the throne. Yet the hollowness of this succession planted seeds of discord, an unstable legacy rooted in manipulations and deceit. Returning to the capital, as this false gaming of power unfolded, Hu Hai's rule began under a canopy of illusion. the second emperor's frailty of authority soon became apparent, his inexperience compounded by an over-reliance on Zhao Gao's insidious counsel. Disillusionment quietly murmured through the empire, the facade of unbroken power cracking as whispers of the emperor's true fate circulated. Hu Hai's compromised reign would serve as a prelude to burgeoning discontent, a series of reverberations rippling through once loyal networks. This discontent brewed unrest across regions as governors and military leaders, sensing weakness, began testing the empire's defences. The veneer of centralisation unspooled at the seams, undermined by whispered revelations and perceived vulnerabilities. As regional loyalties stiffened and whispers of revolt grew, whisperings of Qin Shi Huang, now merely an emperor ghost, resonated deeper among labourers and farmers strained under a fractured regime. The revolt led by Chen Sheng and Wu Guang, not long after, in 209 BCE, was the harbinger of wider insurrection. A populace fatigued under clandestine mandates now sighed towards new banners, promising stability. Despite the attempts to harness deception's momentum into reassurance, it was the very act of concealment and manipulation that unravelled Qin's hegemony. Hu Hai's faltering hold and Zhao Gao's puppet mastery could not hold back the tide, arising from regions seeking liberation from the oppressive legalism that no longer feared the emperor's decree. Province by province, city by city, the empire's cohesion eroded, its grand narrative fading into historical whispers. What remained of Qin Shi Huang's legacy, the architectural marvels of governance, became a cautionary etching in the annals of history, illustrating both the transient shadows of unchecked power and the enduring tapestry of ambition embroidered with fallacy. While the Qin dynasty's control was ephemeral, the echoes of its centralisation techniques would linger, a paradox whereby brief tenure forcefully impressed itself upon the structure of governance for centuries. As successive rulers looked upon the ruins of Qin's dominion, they pondered the intricate dance between might, truth, and the eventual reckoning faced by rulers swayed by ambition's siren call. In 1974, a group of farmers in Shanxi province stumbled upon what would become one of the most awe-inspiring archaeological discoveries of the 20th century. Digging a well, they unearthed not water, but the first hints of a forgotten army, hidden for millennia beneath the soil. Emerging from the earth, these figures stood as spectral guardians of an ancient empire, testimony to the grandeur of a bygone era. The scale of this discovery was as vast as the ambitions of the emperor who commissioned them. Qin Shi Huang, China's first emperor. Underneath the surface lay a subterranean force spanning over 20,000 square metres, each warrior crafted with precision, reflecting the diverse ranks of a once formidable military. This army was not only an archaeological gem, but a narrative of the emperor's self-styled mythology. Each figure bespoke the grandeur of Qin Shi Huang's vision, a blend of earthly dominion and ethereal ambitions. Qin Shi Huang's dream was immortality. His empire in life would transition into eternity, guarded by terracotta soldiers meticulously designed by the artisans under his command. These figures, each with distinct expressions and attire, bore the soul of living warriors, their silent vigil a testament to the labour and skill of craftsmen. This laborious endeavour underscored the emperor's obsession with order and control, principles that were the bedrock of his unified realm. Artisans laboured under strict oversight, their task clear: replicate the emperor's forces with a fidelity that preserved individuality yet reflected imperial unity. Buried for over 2,000 years, the army's arrangement revealed a calculated military precision. Pits were meticulously organised, resembling a parade ground designed to deter enemies even in the afterlife. The infantry stood at the forefront, a formidable line prepared to confront any threat, while chariots and cavalry waited behind, forming a strategic reserve. This layout was both mausoleum and declaration, a vivid statement of an emperor's reign, with every detail echoing the order and power he wielded. Yet, amid the monumental uniformity, individuality shone through. Each warrior came alive with unique features, hairstyles and wardrobes, capturing the essence of soldiers who once marched beneath the emperor's formidable banner. This diversity, a striking contradiction, highlighted the Qin administration's ability to govern an empire that cherished unique regional elements, while enforcing a centralized power. As one gazes upon these stoic figures, time appears to yield to an intimate world where Qin Shi Huang's hand shaped destiny beyond mortal limits. The necropolis housing these figures was but one piece of a larger puzzle. Qin Shi Huang's tomb, yet largely unexplored, stands as an object of speculation and awe. Legend speaks of rivers of mercury flowing within, reflecting the emperor's pursuit of immortality. An alchemical obsession intertwined with science and superstition. Surveys suggest these tales possess a kernel of truth, revealing high concentrations of mercury around the site. Qin Shi Huang's fixation with eternal life saw him sending expeditions and seeking elixirs to stave off death, desires enshrined in the lavish funerary complex designed to mirror his earthly splendour. The Terracotta Army encapsulates the emperor's understanding of immortality, an effort to continue his rule beyond the mortal coil. His artisans captured a thriving martial tradition through these figures, each unit a snapshot of the military innovation that bolstered his campaigns. The bronze weapons, largely looted over time, speak of advanced metallurgical skills, the craftsmanship a testament to the era's martial sophistication. The terracotta forms narrate an age of conquest, the silence between them whispering of battles, won and legacies etched in clay. Excavating this vast necropolis poses its own challenges. The logistical and ethical considerations are weighty, compelling archaeologists toward caution. The task requires delicacy, balancing the preservation of these relics while uncovering their stories. The conundrum remains: how to protect the ancient treasures while sharing their narratives with the world. This guardianship saga is itself a narrative, revealing the dynamics between discovery and the ethical imperative to steward an irreplaceable past. Through the Terracotta Army, Qin Shi Huang left an indelible legacy, a blend of tyranny and visionary prowess enshrined in clay. These silent sentinels stand as both monuments to and critiques of his era. Visitors today marvel at the remnants of his power, each warrior a study in the duality of grandeur and oppressive mandate. They serve as silent witnesses to his reign, conveying the complex tapestry of human ambition and mortality's inexorable march. In his eternal quest, Qin Shi Huang forged an empire resilient to time's erosive forces, crafting artifacts that continue to provoke awe and contemplation, the clay of his creation transforming into a narrative that echoes across centuries. In the days following Qin Shi Huang's unexpected death, the empire he painstakingly constructed trembled on the precipice of chaos. Although his officials initially masked his demise, reality swiftly unravelled, plunging the realm into a maelstrom of political discord. The centralized authority he wielded faltered beneath the weight of human ambition and greed. Power struggled between advisors and family members exploded into lethal confrontations. Qin Shi Huang's designated heir, Hu Hai, proved disastrously inept, spiralling into indulgence and incompetence. The empire's fragile edifice, bound together by the emperor's formidable will, began to crack as rebellions ignited and old rivalries resurfaced, with audacious leaders challenging the central regime's authority. This unravelling of the Qin dynasty mirrors not just the inadequacy of his successors, but highlights the grandeur of Qin Shi Huang's ambitions and the radical essence of his reforms. Despite innovative bureaucratic frameworks, they leaned heavily on his personal oversight and the loyalty his formidable, albeit despotic, presence inspired. Without a shared political culture or the enduring networks longer dynasties cultivated, the Qin regime swiftly disintegrated. The emperor's regime, held tight by the ephemeral grip of fear, fragmented with alarming speed once his presence was absent, a testament to both the reach of his power and its underlying fragility. In Chinese history, Qin Shi Huang epitomizes absolute power, encapsulating traits of both ruthless tyranny and visionary reform. His reign, marked by draconian control, was equally characterized by unparalleled innovation. His governance, harshly authoritarian, laid the bedrock for a unified Chinese identity, transforming the disparate cultures into a cohesive nation-state. This evolution went beyond political boundaries, ushering in societal reforms that would echo through successive dynasties. Qin Shi Huang remains a figure inviting admiration and abhorrence, revered by some as a daring leader who brought order from chaos, while others remember the terror and human rights sacrifices overshadowing his achievements. The coexistence of these contrasting views illustrates the complexity of his influence, showing how absolute power can simultaneously foster revolutionary progress and profound human suffering. Among Qin Shi Huang's lasting legacies were his reforms, whose echoes resonate in modern China. The standardization of currency, measurements and script transformed communication, trade and governance across his vast empire, transcending parochial allegiances. Such reforms forged a national identity, catalyzing internal cohesion and providing the infrastructural bedrock for future dynastic reforms. This central bureaucracy, though initially viewed as oppressive, became instrumental in governing vast territories, evolving into a hallmark of Chinese administration. These enduring reforms underscore their foundational importance, demonstrating Qin Shi Huang's role not just as a consolidator of territories, but as an architect of enduring structural systems, consolidating a framework upon which future progress was built. The reign of Qin Shi Huang's laden with ironies and contradictions, painting a picture of a leader torn between ambitious ideals. His push for unification highlighted societal fractures that persisted beyond his rule. His destruction of tribal and feudal legacies often sowed discontent among the people he sought to homogenize, revealing that unity cannot be forcibly mandated without repercussions. His search for immortality, juxtaposed with preparations for death in the mausoleum with its Terracotta Army, underscores a philosophical tension. Such ironies depict a complex, historical figure, reflecting not only Qin Shi Huang's personal struggles against mortality, but also the enduring human quest for meaning beyond temporal existence. At the heart of Qin Shi Huang's mausoleum complex lies the famed Terracotta Army, a testament to his ambition and paranoia. Constructed to accompany him into the afterlife, these life-sized clay soldiers reveal his belief in eternal defense and control. The army's scale and intricacy reflect the emperor's obsession with power, illustrating his relentless need for dominion, even in death. The logistical mastery required for the Terracotta Army showcases the centralized state's capabilities under his rule, yet it also hints at his underlying fears of vulnerability and dissent. The Great Wall, erected to shield the Qin Empire from northern threats, exemplifies both strategic foresight and draconian sovereignty. This monumental structure, built at great human cost, served both as a bulwark against enemies and as a symbol of internal oppression. For those who perished in its construction, the wall represented not strength, but human sacrifice. Its dual legacy mirrors Qin Shi Huang's reign, where beneficial policies were often overshadowed by brutal execution. Today, the wall stands as both a grand monument and a sombre reflection on the human cost of relentless ambition. Qin Shi Huang's rule was rooted in legalism, emphasizing law, order, and state supremacy above all. This ideology justified the authoritarian measures throughout his rule, from suppressing intellectual freedom to enforcing punitive laws. While effective in achieving rapid reforms, legalism's harsh applications bred resentment, fueling discontent and rebellion. The contrast between legalism's role in consolidating state control and its capacity to incite resistance highlights the complexity of the first emperor's attempts to mould society, serving as a reminder of the delicate balance between order and freedom. While Qin Shi Huang did not personally embrace Buddhism or Taoism, his reign facilitated their later integration into Chinese society. These philosophies offered spiritual alternatives to the rigid structure of state control, illustrating the cultural plurality that would eventually define China. The mythology surrounding Qin Shi Huang, woven from history and legend, remains vast. Over centuries, his story, reimagined through various political lenses, transformed into a blend of historical and mythical. Revered and ridiculed, Qin Shi Huang's narrative provides endless contemplation, inviting reflection long after the reality of his immortality faded. His legacy, visible in modern China, underscores the enduring value of unity, revolution, and the nuanced paradox of absolute power. If you enjoyed this tale from the Qin dynasty's heart, make sure to like and subscribe for more historic adventures.